Hello everyone, welcome back to Cliff Soccer Zone. Just wanted to quickly apologize for my lack of videos over the past few days, but hopefully now we're going to be back to our regular scheduled program and back to the daily uploads. The topic I wanted to talk about today was Arsenal's dominant 7-1 victory in the UEFA Champions League against PSV in Eindhoven at the Philips Stadion, and even the most optimistic of Arsenal fans would not have predicted Arsenal to score 7 goals, and as well as only, if it was going to be a 7-goal game, probably a lot of Arsenal fans would have expected PSV to have scored more than the 1 goal that they scored. And even, as I said, not even the most optimistic of fan would have thought that they would have scored 7 goals especially after the past 2 performances in the Premier League, especially the 0-0 after the 0-0 against Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, how after Ricardo Calafiori was taken off at halftime after being on a yellow card, Mikel Arteta didn't want to take any chances. Calafiori was the only one of the few players in the match that was causing Nottingham Forest all sorts of trouble. His shot hits the post, and doesn't go in, but that was one of the few big chances that Arsenal created that match. Yes, there was Marino missing a header later in the second half, but in my opinion, the chances ended once Calafiori came off the pitch. But going back to the performance yesterday, as I said, it was absolutely dominant performance from start to finish. Yes, there were some moments where Arsenal got very lucky, especially when it was still 0-0. Saibari gets the shot and it hits the crossbar. If that shot goes in, who knows how the game turns out. But as I said, basically Arsenal were very lucky that Saibari's shot hit the crossbar. And the other thing is that Saibari, especially this year, for people I know not many people do who have been following the Dutch Eredivisie, Saibari's been having an incredible season for PSV this season, and normally more times than not, he's putting that in the back of the net. So Arsenal got very lucky that, as I said, Saibari hit the crossbar. Then after the second goal, or was it after the third goal, but basically, Miles Lewis-Skelly was very lucky that he wasn't given a second yellow card, and the referee made it very clear, was not swayed or influenced by the crowd or any of the PSV players, that this was your last chance, anything like that, any sort of funny business, and you're off, Miles. So basically, as I said, Miles Lewis-Skelly was very lucky that he wasn't given a second yellow card. And then after Arsenal went up 3-0, Mikel Arteta didn't want to take any chances, wanted to make sure to keep the tie, the tie was going in their favor, so he took Miles Lewis-Skelly off, and after that brought on Ricardo Calafiori. And as I said, Mikel Arteta needs to be praised for that decision making, especially after other managers have been praised for doing similar sorts of things. When a player gets a yellow card and they don't want to take any chances. And it's something, in my opinion, that yes, people may not be a fan of in terms of the sport in general and how managers are doing that, but in my opinion, that's just smart decision making from a manager to notice that one of your players is maybe on the edge and maybe their head is not all right and stuff like that, and you don't want to take any chances and going down to 10 men and getting a red card. So my opinion, that should be praised. But as I said, going back to the game, those aspects, Arsenal got very lucky, as I said, the Saibari crossbar, hitting the crossbar early in the game when it was 0-0, and Miles Lewis-Skelly being very lucky not to get the second yellow. But going back to the goals, you start where even before Arsenal scored their first goal, they were knocking on the door, very much so, especially with Declan Rice, when he had that goal that was ruled out as offside a few minutes before, he was able to then cross the ball across goal from one side of the box to the far to the back far post, finding Jurrien Timber, who, by the way, is not the tallest guy in the world, especially for a defender who can play center back as he can, was able to leap over the PSV defender and head the ball in the back of the net, which for him personally was definitely a big goal, especially being the ex-Ajax guy, as he is Ajax versus PSV, a major derby and derby rivalry, depending on how you view derby rivalries. Some people only view derbies as local matchups, but it depends on your perspective. Derby rivalry, the terms are pretty much interchangeable in my opinion. But for him personally, that was a very good a goal for him, especially since prior to that he had previously he had faced PSV 10 times in his career. With Ajax, he had never scored, and that was the first time he scored against one of Ajax's arch enemies in PSV. So, and he even mentioned that in the post game that he was very proud that he finally scored against PSV. And a few minutes after that, before Miles Lewis Skelly gets taken off, Arteta didn't want to take any chances. He links up and is able to cut the ball back cuts the ball back across to the goal, and then Ethan Nwaneri, his Hale End teammate and friend that they grew up together, going through the ranks together at Arsenal's Hale End Academy, and even previously played together when they were like 7 years old for a bit at Chelsea. So they've known each other for well over at this point a decade plus, as being good friends, playing with each other, coming up through the ranks at Arsenal, and as I mentioned also previously at Chelsea. Links up, and Nwaneri smashes the ball into the top of the net, and after that goal became the first goal where two English teenagers linked up to score a goal in the Champions League, which is pretty impressive considering some of the excellent young English talents that have played over the years in the UEFA Champions League. So the fact that they were the first two English teenagers to ever link up and score a goal is pretty impressive. Then after that, you have Mikel Merino capitalizing on PSV being unable to clear the ball out of the box, as he saw the ball falls right to him, and then he beautifully curls the ball into the back of the net, which, at least in my opinion, that finish looked like a finish from someone who had been working on that at the training ground with the Arsenal staff, as it seemed to be a very controlled, instinctful finish, especially for someone who has only been really playing as a striker for a couple of weeks now, being the makeshift number 9. And then, unfortunately, afterwards, Thomas Partey has a moment of stupidity, in my opinion, where he naively raises his arm into Luke de Jong, and then Luke de Jong, being the experienced player that he is, makes more of it than it probably is. But again, that's just being an experienced player, and goes down. But as I mentioned, Partey was very naive to have his arm in the motion that he did, essentially yanking what appeared to be yanking and throwing down Luke de Jong to the ground. And especially in the age of VAR, I have a feeling even if it wasn't ruled a penalty on the field, that would have been ruled a penalty via VAR. So you can't be doing that in the box, especially these days. And after that, Noah Lang steps up and converts from the penalty spot, and the tie looks a little more in jeopardy at that point, being 3-1 going into halftime. And then start of the second half, Arsenal come out all guns blazing, as people would say, and score 2 quick goals. You have Martin Odegaard capitalizing on the poorly controlled save from Benitez, and then firing the ball in the back of the net. Yes, there was the moment where it's gone pretty viral, where basically Declan Rice is pointing at the goal, which, hey, it helped. He scored, so you can laugh at the fact that Declan Rice was pointing to Odegaard, here's the goal, shoot, he scored. So I understand it might be some people like a little ridiculous, but he scored, who cares? At least in my opinion. And then after that, you have Ricardo Calafiori with an excellent ball to Leandro Trossard, who then beautifully dinks the ball over Benitez and into the back of the net in what was a beautiful goal from both Calafiori and Trossard linking up to finish off that play. Then after that, Arsenal continued to, as I mentioned, they scored 2 goals within the first few minutes of the second half, essentially killing off the tie. Then you had Martin Odegaard then getting the opportunity to making an excellent run from the top of the box. He fires the ball, which normally I'm assuming, and at least in my opinion, if he hadn't scored that goal previously in the match, I'm not sure if he takes that shot. He takes the shot. Benitez can't keep the ball out of the back of the net, and then Arsenal score that goal as well, making it 6-1. And then later in the second half, you have Odegaard with a beautiful through ball pass to Ricardo Calafiori, who makes the run and then instinctively sneaks the ball in the back of the net, across goal to the lower left far post, and what was a very instinctive finish, especially for a left back and someone who's not a forward. Yes, Calafiori, that is a strong suit of his game, making those runs and scoring goals. He scored several goals last year as a defender for Bologna, which, at least in my opinion, a lot of people are questioning why Arsenal signed him this summer. Yes, you can argue the fee might not have been, was probably more than it probably should have been, but it's also, in my opinion, not his fault that Arsenal didn't also sign a striker. So I think the blame that people are putting towards him for Arsenal not signing a striker is the blame is being inappropriately put on him, especially since it's not his fault that Arsenal didn't sign a striker. But the big thing, at least in my opinion, is he's great at scoring goals, especially as a defender. So that's at least a part of my reason in thinking why Arsenal signed him, because they were looking to increase goals overall, not necessarily through the striker, as everyone thought. Whether that was correct or not, that's a debate for a different day, but that's my opinion why they signed him. But Calafiori scores the goal, capping off an excellent performance for Arsenal as they've effectively ended the tie, clinched their place in the quarterfinal. Knock on wood, but I hope, at least in my opinion, I think a 7-1 lead is a safe lead for Arsenal to essentially, as I said, secure their place in the quarterfinal, where at least as of now, it looks like they will play Real Madrid, as Real Madrid are up 2-1 over Atletico Madrid going into the second leg. But we will have to see what ends up happening. But Arsenal now have the opportunity, with Manchester United coming up, to rest players for that game, as well as potentially even the second leg at home back in the Emirates next week. So, as I said, Arsenal, dominant performance, and essentially clinching their spot in the quarterfinal. It's looking like it's going to be Real Madrid, but basically that's it pretty much for Arsenal. They had a dominant performance against a team that hadn't lost at home for over almost 3 years at that point. Before this past week, they went on a long streak where they went like 50-something games at home unbeaten. So beating PSV, even though they haven't looked great recently, is still an impressive performance. And that's pretty much it on my end. But thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for more videos that are coming. And take care. Have a good one, guys.